on the news front, we've got Dennis Dodd, over the Dodd-father, over at CBSSports.com. He shared some news that I think, based on our conversation, we're somewhat encouraged by. And it is that the NCAA has decided to table any discussions in outlawing the hip drop tackles. And one of the main reasons that they've decided to do it is because they are concerned about how difficult it would be to legislate on the field. I mean, Danny, we got to be glad that we're not going to have to deal with that kind of controversy in trying to decide what is or isn't a hip drop tackle, at least for right now at the college game, right?
I think this was our reaction when we talked about it last week. When the NFL announced the rule, it was, let's let them see how it goes before we try it. And they're even going to try it for a year and then come back and revisit the topic. I think it's going to be a disaster at the NFL level. I would predict that in the preseason, they're going to call it a lot and everyone's going to freak out, including players, and then they're going to dial it back, and whether they actually take it off the books or just tell the officials to don't throw the flags as much as you did in the preseason. And then maybe they quietly do away with it. But and if it works and there's no complaints and they're able to do it successfully, then we can revisit. But especially with there's way more officials in college. There are way more inexperienced officials in college. They're not as equipped. I say thank goodness they're not going to try this in college football, because I think it's going to be a disaster in the NFL, and I think it would be even worse in college.
My official prediction for the NFL is good news for you, Chip. I think that this rule change will make your fantasy football strategy of just drafting all the tight ends a very winning strategy, because I think tight ends are going to be very difficult to stop when defensive backs have to just try to square them up to bring them down. But yeah, no, I echo what Danny was saying about the college game. I'd rather see it at the NFL level for a year just to test it out than jumping right in simply because the NFL is doing it. So yeah, I don't know if it'll be a disaster. I don't think it'll be very fun. I think it'll be a point of contention for fans. I think it'll be something that people don't like watching as they review all these things, but I don't know if it'll be a disaster.
It'll get people talking.
Yeah.
We're going to have a situation in the playoffs where somebody's either called for it and people are pissed because it wasn't called much in the regular season, or on the flip side, probably should have been called by the letter of the law. It's not called because the playoffs and the refs swallow their whistles, or maybe if Mahomes is involved, it absolutely is called like twice on the same play. And, to me, it's just a tackle. Like, people have tackled this way. Like, you want to take the head out of the game, you're going to have increased like non-leading with the head type of tackle. It's a natural byproduct.
And it is the definition of the action that the NCAA is, and I think that was it is not often we come out here with some great headlines like, man, what, the NCAA is really being sensible about this. But the coordinator of officials, Steve Shaw, has been doing this for a really long time, and he said to Dennis, said the conclusions from this year's meeting was that we needed a solid definition of the action. Waiting is an excellent way to teach players how to avoid this technique so that we can ensure we can administrate it. The fact that it's so confusing into understanding what the line is going to be, what the intent is going to be for the hip drop tackle is it's going to be difficult to be able to feel confident if you're a defender that you are not doing it in those types of situations. So I'm glad that the NCAA is going to at least sit back and see how it goes at the NFL level here.
There is a chance. Let me make sure we hedge a little bit on the take, and maybe Bud's right. Maybe it won't be that bad. I mean, the horse collar tackle was probably something that was controversial when they said they weren't going to do that anymore. And it's pretty, they wanted to get that out of the game because players were getting hurt with that one. It's pretty, they monitor it and officiate it pretty, flawlessly. There's not many issues with that. So maybe it could go that way. I just think I think to Chip's point, to be able to decipher what entails it when they're talking about these three factors they're looking for, I think it's going to be really hard to tell.
And really at the college level, like, that's the Jordan Travis injury is the one they're pointing to. Like, if you want to see the tackle at the college level that is drawing a lot of, drawing a lot of attention when we're discussing this, it is Jordan Travis getting dragged down by the North Alabama defender, leading to a season-ending injury and creating all of the drama that was Florida State's conclusion to the season. So, you have that, but it doesn't mean that we should overreact right away. We should not put in the Jordan Travis rule right away without being able to see, how things go at the professional level as well.
I don't even know how much they still hit anymore in NFL practices, but do you think, like, if you're a coaching staff, are you having your players wear jerseys in practice that just are like a different color of like, this is where you can hit a guy? Like I would do that with all my offensive players. Like on their shirts, I would have like a big blue like midsection area and say, "This is where you hit them," just to have them practice doing it.
Small blue midsection area, because we're shrinking the strike zone. I mean,
Just let them
look,
wear a cummerbund and say, "This is where you can tackle."
it sucked what happened to Jordan Travis, but like I don't think that's a dirty hit. That's just football.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's the thing that's incredibly frustrating to me. And it's been happening in this process for the past 10, 15 years. They're trying to make a dangerous game safe.
Yeah.
It is not a safe sport, and it will never be unless, I mean, 7-on-7 guys get hurt. Like sports are dangerous in general, but one of the more dangerous sports they're trying to make safe. And it's, going to become it already kind of is, but it's going to become even more of an unrecognizable product if they keep trying to make it safe.
Like there's certain things you could do, and they did with boxing, which is probably like the closest comp we can have to football. Like they took away people rigging the gloves to where they're frozen or dipped in whatever. Like you can't put anything heavier in the gloves. Like they penalize you if you are repeated kidney shot type thing, or if you're hitting late or below the belt. But ultimately, like the crux of the sport is still like you're punching other guys in the face, right? Like football is not real fun without the hits, at least not to me. Like I think the hits are a real part of it. And I think a lot of folks in the chat probably agree.
Don't you think though? Like, so again, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, because I think the sport already, I mean, people said the same thing when they got rid of jacked up, oh, they can't do jacked up anymore. And they have taken the head hits out and there's less violent collisions, but the ratings are up. Like people are still watching. Like, I just wonder when we reach that tipping point where it really does go to a place where it's, oh, that's not football. But like it kind of already is when you look at, I mean, the whole thing with quarterbacks now, they can't land on them, which again, that was another one at the beginning. I thought they over legislated it. They called it way too much. Now it has to be a little bit more obvious. But historically, like how, defensive tackle running up the middle, sacks the quarterback. Yeah, he's going to tackle him and land on him. Now they're like delicately trying to, roll off them, set them down, go around the side. But ratings are an all-time high. So like people have not stopped watching as the game has gotten safer. I just wonder when we reach that tipping point where people do check out and be like, no, this isn't what I wanted.
There's like a shocking amount of folks out there who think sports are rigged. And I think that's nuts for the most part. But like anytime you allow officials to make more of an impact on the game, that only kind of fuels that fire.
Do you think that's got a better chance of turning people off than the lack of violence? Like if they truly start to doubt the integrity of the competition?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the tipping point is when people are just like, when they are no longer drawn by turning something on and saying, I don't know what will happen. I want to watch this and I want to watch this live to see what will happen. I think that's a bigger threat to people checking out. I don't think we will get to a level of softness in the game that will have people like, this isn't the sport that I knew, because a lot of people are like, yay, touchdowns, woo, go points. But if they think that the integrity is in doubt, I could see that being something. If it continues to be pervasive with the NFL is rigged crowd, if they get louder and louder, then that could be the where we see things turn.
Also, I mean, going back to Danny's point, like how viewership is still rising. I don't know. Like the NFL is a weird kind of special unicorn in that it really doesn't matter what that league does, people still watch it. It's like the one sport in the country where I feel like it could be like flag football next year and they'll still get better ratings than other leagues just because everybody is so used to watching and following the NFL. So I don't know.
What is the NFL gold bars or something?
Yeah, it's like the gold standard of sports in America. Yeah,
it really is
crazy.
I know we're going to move on to a different topic, but just tying it in with NFL kind of, I don't know if you guys saw the UFL action over the weekend, but RIP to the chain gang, the yardage markers. Do you see what they were doing? I thought it was pretty cool. And I think it's something where I think we got a glimpse of what the future is going to look like. And I think it's going to come sooner rather than later now that they've seen it happen. With the technology they use to determine first downs or not. So they have the chip in the football, and they're not necessarily using it on replay just yet. But when they put the football down on the field, as opposed to running out the chains, stretching them and saying, oh, and they go like this, they went very much like a tennis, like Wimbledon, US Open. They go up to the high angle and they come down on the football and it says up 5 inches short. And then it's just like, all right, there you go. So I think that's the future of what we're going to see. And then it'll save a lot of time, like, because it takes forever to get those old retired dudes out there across the field and then run all the way back. It's way more efficient. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.